Hey, Magic the Gathering players, it's Ivy again with another deck build. This is an EDH commander deck for Zur the Enchanter. There he is. Boom, there's Zur. He's hanging out right there. This is a very aggressive and defensive deck at the same time, but it's not using a lot of creatures. I'm using a lot of enchantments, so it's very heavy on enchantments and enchantment affinity for obvious reasons because of Zur. Now, the commander Zur, if we look at him, obviously he has flying. Whenever Zur, the enchanter, attacks, you may search your library for an enchantment card with converted mana cost of 3 or less and put it into the battlefield. If you do, shuffle your library. Now, the great thing about Zur is that if you put a lot of 3-cost enchantments in there, you're going to get them out, and you can use those enchantments against your opponents to lock down their commanders or lock down a lot of their big stuff, or even, make their day a lot more difficult to play on their side of the field. So we're just going to dive right into this deck and check out and see what we got going on here, okay? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to these planeswalkers here. I'm going to go ahead and talk about these. These are just little generic planeswalkers. Obviously, these were just the uncommon ones that came in War of the Spark, but I thought these might be really good for this type of deck just to kind of slow down your competition, considering I'm not running a lot of creatures here. So each opponent can't cast more than one card each turn. Very, very useful planeswalker, Narset. She's 3 to get out, pretty cheap. Plus her -2. I can look at the top 4 cards in my library. I can reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into my hand. Put the rest in the bottom of my library in any random order. Now, what's great about that is you can get enchantments or things that you really need to run the deck with her. Next card is going to be Kaya. Again, it's a very defense-heavy card, but it does provide some disadvantage to your opponents. Your opponents and permanents your opponents control with hexproof can be targets of spells and abilities you control as though they didn't have hexproof. Now, one thing you'll see in this deck is there's some things to steal creatures with enchantments, and that is very useful to have something like that to allow your enchantments to work. Now, spells your opponents cast that target a creature or planeswalker you control cost 2 more to cast. Again, good way to slow down your opponents a little bit if they're trying to remove Zur or something on your field. Now, spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. Great card for people that like to use tutors. A lot of people like to use like Mystical Tutor or Enlightened Tutor or Worldly Tutor or Vampiric Tutor. All those tutor cards out the window with this until they get rid of this guy. And a good thing about these little planeswalkers is they tend to become like targets, which if they're targeting this, then they're not targeting your commander, and you'll see why that's really important. And obviously the -1, I can make somebody mill their, mill their top 4, which can be a really, disaster if I mill away their win con. Now, Dovin, again, he's more of just, again, a cheap little defense card. I can help prevent damage by a target permanent in case I'm worried about commander damage or something weird's going on. Not designed to be too complicated or offensive here. Very pillow 40 type card, and he may get targeted or he may not, but he's, sooner or later he might become fodder or not. A good diversion though to have at the board on your board state. Now this one's kind of a flex card. I was thinking, I'll throw it in Jazzian just for the funds. When you cast him, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of his or her library. Then you may put any number of land cards that player owns from exile onto the battlefield under your control. Very useful to get some extra card advantage in lands. A little bit of extra land action. Heliod. Now, what's great about Heliod is that it's an enchantment. So as long as your devotion to white is less than 5, he's a creature, but he's also indestructible. And of course, whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. And of course, the pay 2 ability, 1 white and 1 colorless. Another target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. So a good way to add some life gain to the deck. And of course, one thing that's about Zur is he gets 3 cost enchantments out on the battlefield for free. So if you look at this, it's a free card. You can basically, if you get Zur in, you get this out to your battlefield for free. So it's a good way, as soon as Zur comes out, to go get something. Now, next cards, we're going to hit the creatures. First creature, very defense-based. Not a lot of power and toughness, but it's designed really to cause creatures and non-basic lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. Thalia is a great card to give your opponents, again, more board state disadvantage. And of course, non-basic lands coming into play. People might fetch for something like a Triome or something. If it's non-basic land, well, then it's going to come into play tapped, and they won't get to use that land that turn. Next thing, of course, is this guy. What's great about this guy is you can see horsemanship. There's not anybody that plays creatures with horsemanship. Last I checked. It happens, but it's pretty uncommon. I mean, none of the commander games I've played where somebody had this guy. But you can see when he gets through, I get to get a card draw. I'm going to start stacking enchantments on top of him because he's going to get through automatically, typically, and get card draw. So he's a great creature to have in this kind of deck, and he's a great creature to have in any blue deck. And he also, if people want to get rid of him, at least gets rid of a kill spell that might otherwise target your commander. So if they really don't like him, then get rid of him. But honestly, he's mostly for card draw, and he can become deadly. And I'll show you why any of these things can become very deadly with the kind of enchantments that are in this deck. Now, next one, a little bit of a fave of mine. I like things that are indestructible. Flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, indestructible. It is a 6 cost, or I'm sorry, an 8 cost, 2 white and 6 colorless. I think it's a good creature to have. You know, I've gotten plenty of mana to cast it before, so if you start stacking enchantments on this, it could be game over for the other person with this guy alone, believe it or not. Now, next one is really obviously for card draw. You can see that she, whenever I cast an enchantment, you make draw a card. Great card to have if you're trying to get more card draw. Next one, we got Starfield Mystic. All my enchantments cost 1 less to cast. Whenever an enchantment I control is put in the graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Starfield Mystic. Great card. Next one we got. Now this one can do a variety of things. Because it can enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, I can copy someone else's commander, I could copy an Eldrazi, I can copy anything that's a creature that maybe can give me an advantage or, do something really cool. And I lock down that creature. It doesn't untap as long as I control the duplicate of that creature. I can also copy one of my own creatures. Now, if one of you guys want to leave some information in the comments here, I was wondering if I could duplicate Zur and have 2 Zurs with this. I'm not sure because Zur is legendary if the legend rule comes into play. I know there was recently a modification on the legend rule, so I've always been a little shaky on whether if you clone a card or you do something like this, you shapeshift it or something, if in fact you get 2 of the same creature without triggering the legend roll. Now, the next thing here is the Bayard, Steward of Argive. Again, this is really a pillow 40 card, just designed to slow down everyone else's game against you, so very useful. Now, we get into all the enchantments. Now, this row here, all of these are all 3 cost enchantments, so the idea is that you're going to use Zur to get these. This first one, Steal the Godhead. Enchant creature, as long as the enchanted creature is white, which there is, it gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. As long as enchanted creature is blue, it gets +1/+1 and has unblockable. So if they have a flying blocker with this on it, you're automatically going to get through. So you'll get your spells off and all the good stuff that goes along with that. Now, here's a great card that a lot of people probably don't realize or not running or wish they were running. It's a reprint in Double Masters for a card that I believe was in, I want to say Arabian Nights. I believe it goes back that far. But nonetheless, a little bit of flake on there. Anyway, this guy is great because when you read this, it says when an obulette enters the battlefield, target creature phases out until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. So I tap the creature and it phases in this way. You can take out someone's commander, but because the commander never hits the graveyard or exile, it never ends up back in the command zone. It just kind of goes into another dimension until this card is somehow removed from the battlefield. So you can really mess up someone's game if they have a key component with a certain creature or commander, you can basically remove their commander from their game, so they'll never be able to cast it from the command zone or do anything with it. Great card that I think is probably underrated, and people just don't realize how powerful something like this could be. So yeah, I mean, Ovulette can do a lot of interesting things for 3 mana, and I can get it out for free. So I can just drop it on someone's thing and then pretty much leave them to have to figure out what to do with it. Also, it attaches to the enchantment affinity of this deck. Next card we got is Ghostly Prison. Ghostly Prison, obviously, I don't really say much about this. It makes players have to pay an extra 2 to attack you for each creature. Land tax, I'm not getting into it. You think you know what it does. Free lands, basically, for the most part. If they have more lands than you get free ones. Now, this one, when Unquestioned Authority comes into play, you draw a card. Enchanted creature has protection from creatures. Very useful. If somehow someone's trying to block Zur or block one of your creatures, you drop this on that, and well, they can't block it because it's protected from creatures. Very great enchantment, and it costs 3. Get it out for free. One of the most underrated cards I do not see getting a lot of play lately is this one. Now, because there's card draw in here, of course, like Rhystic Study and some of the other card draw enchantments and things that you saw in creatures, this card will save your butt. You can decline your card draw and from your library, and then on your draw phase, in exchange until the start of your next turn, the only creatures that can attack you are those that fly or have island walk. So you're really pretty much any green heavy or creature heavy decks or like infinite dinosaurs or whatever, you can pretty well stop that in its tracks if they're on the ground. Next one, this is the Indestructible Bug. This is a great card to drop on someone's commander or their Blightsteel Colossus or whatever they've got. Just drop it on this. Drop it on that. Got an Indestructible 0/1 bug. They can't get rid of it. It's pretty much that's it. You got a 0/1 Indestructible Bug. As long as someone can't destroy, it's undestroyable, so it just stays there. So you've locked away someone's commander without, again, sending a commander to the command zone or or into exile, where it would return to command zone. So exile or library, or exile or graveyard. If you don't send it there, obviously you can keep it on the battlefield, but lock it down so it doesn't exist. Next card is going to be a favorite. I mean, I don't need to explain this one. I think people know what Rhystic Study does. We'll just go to the next one. Now, this one again is another commander killer. Nevermore. You obviously may not know what's in someone's deck. However, you can see and look on the battlefield at the cards that are out there, and you can declare that someone's commander can no longer be cast throughout the game until somehow they manage to remove this from the game. Nobody realizes how powerful this card is in Commander and the things it can do if you know what people are playing on the other side, which you do. You automatically know what someone's commander is, so you can easily ban them from command. You're banning their card, basically. That's how good that is. People don't realize how good this kind of thing can be if you need it. If I want 2 of those BTW, 2 of those, I get a Mirror Maid, I dupe it. Okay, I want to ban the other person's commander. Now your commander's bad. Do you see where I'm going with this? Or I can make another thing that locks down someone's commander. Mirror Maid is basically copying any artifact or enchantment on the battlefield, so this can have a lot of great uses. I've actually duplicated the Eldrazi conscription that's in this deck to get double Eldrazi conscriptions out of something like this. Anytime you can dupe an enchantment, you want to do that because you're going to get double of what you need. And of course, let's dupe it again. We got Estra's Invocation. It comes into play as a copy of an enchantment. And obviously if you want to do the thing on the bottom, I suppose you can, but the ideal here, because it is a you may, so you don't have to do that, you want to be copying your enchantments, and it costs 3, so Zur can go get it. You can copy some enchantment that you already put in play. With Zur, if you can get him through enough times, you can lock down everybody's commander on the field, and then start really shutting down everybody else's game, and pretty much win. Now, here's another great lockdown card for commanders. Even if they board wipe and have something that destroys all the, like, let's say they do Cyclonic Rift. Well, they'll definitely Cyclonic Rift everything that belongs on the different sides. But this now becomes, I believe, possession of the player that it's enchanted on. Well, it's enchanted permanent. I guess I control the enchantment. So in any event, if they can't get rid of this, the best thing I would say is that it turns their commander into a land, or like, their Eldrazi, or maybe you want to turn Avacyn into a basic land. Just drop this on Avacyn. If she's no longer indestructible, if she's a basic land, you just enchant her with this. I don't remember if I don't think on Avacyn's is hexproof. I can't remember. I'd have to look into that. I'm pretty sure she's indestructible, but I don't think she's hexproof. So, Gift of Immortality, enchant creature. When enchanted creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under your owner's control. Basically, this is an infinite, Reserve will never die if you put this on here. It basically, if it dies, it goes to the graveyard, comes back with this back on it again at the end step. So if on my turn it gets wrecked, then there you go. Or if they destroy it on their turn. Either way, I get him back. Battle Mastery, enchant creature, has double strike. That's useful. Next one we got is Curator's Ward, enchant permanent. Enchanted permanent has hexproof. I can do that to Zur or another creature in play. When enchanted creature permanent leaves the battlefield, if it was historic, draw a card. So if it dies somehow, well, then I get to draw a card draw. Rule of Law, this is a great defense card against your other opponents. Again, this card allows for a lot of things to come out into play free, or other ways to get card draw and all kinds of fun stuff. So, each player can't play more than one spell per turn. So if you're putting stuff out for free, then who cares? You're going to get it out for free, so you're going to get at least your spell plus the free thing, and maybe some other shenanigans that come along with this deck. If you want to play that. Of course, you don't have to play it. If you like playing, if you've got a full hand of stuff and a lot of mana, you might as well just not play that and drop down your stuff. Now we got Enchantment. This is Blind Obedience. Obviously, it's a defense, sort of pillow 40 type card. Artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Again, it's giving them board field disadvantage, and it gives you advantage on your side because you're getting, again, more opportunity to do the things you want to do with Zur and the enchantments you have. Oblivion Ring, it's going to be enchantment affinity, but it's basically the same as a Path to Exile. Of course, you don't want to do this to someone's commander unless you want to kick it off the field and put it back to their command zone. But any other creature, you can exile a really nasty creature until the person's able to get rid of this enchantment. A lot of people in the games I've played have never had an ability to get rid of a lot of my enchantments. They, for some reason, don't pack in cards that do that. A lot of, stuff that gets rid of creatures on field, but not so much enchantments. It's not really their gameplay style. There are people that do that, but it's not common, so you're going to win more than you're going to have an issue with it. Now, Daybreak Coronet, of course, it gives a buff, +3/+3, and your creature has First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink. Of course, you can stack this on top of other, enchantments on a creature like Zur or one of the other ones. The last 3 cost is going to be this one. If I really want to play it, enchanted creature can't be the target of spells or abilities, and the card itself cannot be target of spells or abilities. So this has hexproof, and that has hexproof. So if I want to pop that on my creatures and keep it on play, I can't have somebody, unsummon it or send it back to my hand or lightning bolt it or whatever. You see where I'm going with this? So it's a great defense card for something you want to stay on the battlefield to keep getting those triggers every time you hit in with it. Now I'm going to show you some alternate creatures we got here. We've got Layla, Artful Provocateur. She's got Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink. Other creatures you control with Flying get +1/+0. Now, what's great is it really falls in line with the Artifact Affinity, in that the Artifact and Enchantment Affinity. So that allows for you to create a lot of 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens, which become great in the air blockers if you need them. That also you can attach enchantments or equipment to and see what you can do with it. It's a really good card to give you a lot of extra little blockers and stuff. And of course, it's in the same color scheme as Zur, so you can actually use this almost as a secondary backup commander in a way. So I figured it's a great card to throw in the 99. Next card I dropped in the 99 was this one. Obviously, the correct color affinity for Zur. Flying, Vigilance, Menace. When Yennet, Cryptic Sovereign attacks, Reveal the top card of your library. If that card's converted mana cost is odd, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Otherwise, draw a card. You'll notice a lot of those 3-cost enchantments, well, they're odd, so they can easily come out whether Zur puts them out or not. If I can put them out with that guy, then sure, why not? Now, these enchantments cost more than 3, so they don't come out for free with Zur, but obviously if they're in my hand and I've got the mana to cast them, then I'll do it. Another way to exile a creature without making it leave the battlefield is this one. And let's see here. So that's a good card, Suppression Bonds. And then let's see. We've got this one here. This is going to be Dream Leash. This is great because you can steal people's creatures. The advantage to doing that, obviously, is that you reduce their board state and increase yours instantly. It's an instant decrease to theirs and an increase to yours. So if you think about it, board state's important in Commander. So you're reducing your opponent's board state and increasing yours. You can see where that's going. It's a really great card, by the way. Mind and Bound. It gets really epic pretty fast. If you can get this out and then start, as turns go by, add a counter, you're going to get, obviously, more card draw. You know, good stuff to have every turn. And let's see. This is this has been a game winner for me. If you attach it to Zur, he basically gets a +10/+10, trample, and annihilator too. So you could turn him into basically an Eldrazi creature. And of course, if he's indestructible and all the other things that you can do to him, he's gonna get in if he's unblockable. So this will seriously do some major damage. And you can copy this with some of those copy cards, copy enchantments. Get it out, copy it, you can double it, you can put it on other creatures. It's a great card to have with an enchantment deck like this. Next card is Omniscience. Obviously, you can see what it does. You can cast non-land cards from your hand without paying their mana cost. So much value. This is great because it gives you, it reduces your opponent's board state, causes them to sacrifice creatures or planeswalkers, causes them to decrease their card draw capacity, to reduce it by a card. Then, of course, you can go get stuff out of their graveyard to give you board state advantage. So you're you're disadvantaging them and advantaging yourself in one card. Of course, you want to do this to steal someone's creature, just like the other card I showed you. You have to have this in this deck. I mean, there's so many enchantments going on in here that Sigil of the Empty Throne is pretty well a guaranteed must-have in here if you're going to want to make 4/4 white angel creature tokens. Make the tokens, they pop out, and then got more angels. Next one is going to be Indestructibility. Enchant permanent. Enchanted permanent is indestructible. You can see where that's going. You put it on Zur or one of the other cards that you want to do that with. Next one's going to be On Sarah's Wings. Not the greatest enchantment, but +1/+1, vigilance, and lifelink. Give you some more life from a creature getting in. Sphere of Safety. I've actually won games with this. I know it's crazy. It's got to be a card if you're running enchantment heavy decks. I've had somebody where they couldn't attack me with a creature unless they paid like 13, 14 mana with this deck because of all the enchantments that go into it. So great defense, pillow fort card. You can pretty much shell yourself into your own, into your own board state and be protected with this as long as someone can't get rid of it immediately. And then, of course, I'm pretty sure you know what it does. If you're running a deck that has any white in it, if you're playing Commander, you're going to play Smothering Ties. It's pretty obvious what it can do. You can see that right there. Gets you a lot of free mana, a lot of free stuff. Now, the next part we're going to do is hit up some of these artifacts over here. Nothing too crazy or impressive, but this one's very helpful if, if Zur gets too high of a casting cost and people hate him or you really don't like your deck or they're just wanting to hate on you, well, you can go get them with this, If I can get this guy through, maybe with an enchantment attached on him that makes him unblockable, well, there you go. You can see what I go. I can go ahead and get, Zur from the command zone without paying his mana cost. So another way to get Zur back out on the field to keep pumping out those enchantments. I love this card. I don't see it ran a lot. Yes, it's 6 cost, but it really disadvantages your opponents because it costs more. All their spells cost 2 more to cast. And, okay, they lose a life one turn, but I believe the 2 making their opponents pay more to cast for spells is helpful. and it doesn't damage you. Now this card, obviously you want to drop this on someone else's creature, and then they attack the other creature in someone else's, someone else at the table other than you. So really a great card. I can't say any bad things about that one. Obviously it's a enchantment heavy deck, so you're going to want to run this this artifact equipment. Drop it on Zur, drop it on what you want. It's going to really go in there and hits for some damage, especially as you start stacking in the enchantments on your board state. Last equipment would be the Prowler's Helm. Yeah, obviously the idea here is to make Zur unblockable, so you can guarantee get them in, you can guarantee get damage in. Because the deck, you'll notice, doesn't have a lot of damage dealers. It has ways to lock everyone else out, and then start dealing damage, especially if you start going and getting some of these big enchantments out. Now, next thing we got is just rocks. We're going to say it'll lock it. You see Fire Mine Vessel, Thran Dynamo, Soul Ring. I'm sure you know what a Soul Ring is. Commander Sphere, Signet, got Exoria Signet. We've got Wurzov Signet, and last but not least, rock would be Dimir Signet. Obviously, great to have signets. You know, good for the artifact affinity. Now, we're going to go ahead and grab this. This is, of course, your instant. Target player returns each commander they control from the battlefield to the command zone. So I can just get Zur back out again. Great card to do that with. Next one we got is, we're going to say Mire and Misery. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or enchantment. Very useful because, again, it's giving you advantage and everyone else disadvantage on board state. Here you've got great card to dump mana into. If you got a lot of extra mana laying around, you could actually win the game with this. If people just don't see it coming. It's just not going to happen. You're gonna cast this when somebody's down to like 6 life. You have 8 open mana. Down they go. They're just dead. You know, obviously, and it's gonna really, you know, put down people's life total really very quickly. Now we got this one. Destroy all creatures that aren't enchanted. They can't be regenerated. A great board wipe. Especially if you're running a Zur deck where everything you have on board state is enchanted. So probably Zur is enchanted or any of the creatures in play that I want to enchant. Highly unlikely that anything of mine will be damaged, but this will definitely damage their stuff. Now, the last bits here, we've got Dovin's Veto. You know what that does. We've got Think Twice, great for card draw, and I can come back later on and draw another card if I really need this. We've got, of course, Vapor Snag. I can make, again, you're slowing people down. They go ahead and they cast a creature, and I kick it back to their hand, and of course they lose a life. Well, whatever, no big deal. Idea is to slow them down. Unsubstantiate, return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. Again, the whole idea is to make their game a lot slower, because creatures come into play summoning sick, and a lot of things you can start winning with Zur if you can start slowing them down. Obviously a good counter spell. And of course allows you to get some card draw on top of that. If let's say your Zur is getting attacked by a spell, you can counter it with that. Very useful. Good old-fashioned mana leak. Don't need to talk about it. You know what it does. Path to Exile, of course. Next one's going to be, looks like Miscalculation. I can counter target spell unless its caster pays an additional 2. It's kind of like a mana leak. Same idea. Next one, it's going to be Fumble, return target creature to owner's hand, gain control of all auras and equipment that were attached to it, and then attach them to another creature. You can kind of see where that's going. Attach it to one of mine. Now the lands, all the non-basics are pretty obvious here. There's a lot of card draw, so you're definitely going to want to use Reliquary Tower, Command Tower. These are obviously just non-basic lands. You can kind of see where they're at. Exotic Orchard. We've got Silent Clearing and Dimir Aqueduct. Looks like there's your 3 color. Comes into play tap, but it does give you one of each. So, or at least you can choose from one of the 3 different colors of the commander's identity. Next card we got is Glacial Fortress. Next one's going to be Myriad Landscape. We've got, of course, another Basilica. Again, this 2 mana here thing is a good way to ramp. If you're returning a land and you control your hand, you're just going to get the land out later anyway. So it's a good way to get some extra land ramp on your board state. Sunken Hollow, well, it's, obviously you can see it's a dual land, does its thing. Azorius Chancery, really useful. Hall of Heliod's Generosity. You can see why that's useful. Temple of the False God gives you some extra mana, obviously, if you have 5 or more lands. And of course, Dark Slick Shores. And that should do it. So this is Zerg. That's the Magic Fairy. And here's Zerg. So this is a Zerg deck, EDH Commander. I do suggest that you play this deck, but there are some upgrades I'm going to make to this deck, but I wanted to give you guys at least a really good idea of how to build this type of deck, because he can really become deadly really fast. And when you play this, you're going to realize all the advantage and card draw it's going to give you, all the enchantment advantage, and artifact affinity advantage that it gives you. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, I can always just type them in the comments or give me suggestions, I know there's a couple cards I can add here that I just don't own yet, or they're in other decks, and, I'd need another one if I needed it. So just drop in some suggestions or what you think of the deck. Maybe you want to try and build it yourself. In any event, it's been really good talking to you guys about Magic. And till next time, I'll keep on playing. Have a good one.